Start with the old standby. Complete denial. I never said that. But in these days, with everyone with a smartphone, it's pretty hard to avoid the words that you said, so complete denial really doesn't work very well anymore. So go with number 2, when denial doesn't fly. Okay, these might have been my words, but they were completely taken out of context. With smartphones, that doesn't work very well anymore either, because everything's being recorded, just as I can watch you, some of you, there's smartphones right now. So when the classic standbys don't work, deflect. Anyone who knows me knows that my record of supporting, filling, whatever, is long and deep. I realize my words may have been misconstrued, and I apologize if anyone is offended. The implication being, of course, it's your fault. And finally, the ultimate. I have come to realize that my actions and words are inappropriate, and I have a problem with, fill in whatever you want. Tomorrow I'll be voluntarily entering the fill in whatever you want. And with the support and the help of my family and the prayers of my supporters, I look forward to returning soon to my responsibilities as... Okay, that covers us for the night. I was introduced as the first person to lose an election to Jim Moran, and I guess that's technically true. We both ran for office for the first time in 1979 for City Council. Jim finished 6th, and I finished 7th. Truthfully, that's not something that I particularly dwell on. It was a long time ago, and I don't really remember the details. But if 12.39 more voters from each precinct had voted for me, things could have turned out a lot differently. Just an average at 12.39. It could have been 8 in one precinct and like 16 in another. But no. Or as famously once said, the voters have spoken, those bastards. Now, if you've ever met him, you know what passion he had for politics, but his greatest passion was for his children, and especially if they were running for office. I had won and finished ahead of his son. That was a true Kodak moment. And again, for the under 30 set, that's K-O-D-A-K in the search engine. As I was preparing for tonight, I suddenly realized I have known Jim Moran for almost 40 years. Wow. When you realize that 50% of Alexandria's population turns over every 5 years, 40 years represents a sea change in what this community was then and is now. 40 years ago was just barely after desegregation, and the remnants of that were still very much in evidence. Delray was not the hot spot for shopping and dining and living that it is now. Politics was still pretty much the old boy network, but it was changing. Everything was changing. And a common denominator for those changes was Jim Moran. He had this funny Boston accent. He could be a little loud and brash, but his voice was the one you heard speaking for those who could not or would not speak for themselves. I vividly recall I really do remember this, always remember this, that during that campaign, Jim and I were, you go to all the campaign forums together, and I guess my car must have been in the shop or something, and I asked Jim if he could give me a ride to wherever we were going. And Jim started talking about affordable housing. I really remember that because although I probably didn't articulate it at the time, I've thought about it since then. Some people run for office to be something, and some people run for office to do something. Has there ever been any doubt which one Jim Moran is?
No.
To describe his services as big shoes to fill is a true understatement. And I mean that literally. Have you ever seen his shoes? They're huge. His feet must be like flippers. But Jim, there has truly never been a moment in this community, in this district, in this country, when you have not been an absolute rock for the rights of others, for human rights, civil rights, women's rights, animal rights, veterans, government workers, immigrants, healthcare, for Israel and every country living under the daily threat of total destruction, and for people in constant fear of the next round of genocide, for housing, for education, for the environment, and for the little guy who just needs some help with his Social Security.